come and listen to me. Lillian asked me a few weeks if I would talk about my journey to high performance, and I must admit that in the 30 years that I've been working as a coach, I've never been asked to speak about my journey. I do lots and lots of coach development, coach education, lecturing, where I talk endlessly about topics or ways to do things, but I've never ever talked about myself. I found it a little bit uncomfortable, certainly when she first asked, but it has actually been a really good exercise for me to reflect on my coaching life. And so my intention today is to just talk to you about my journey, my road to high performance. Everybody's road is different, but I'm just going to be talking about mine. I'm mostly a visual learner, so I'm actually going to tell my story through pictures, mostly my photo gallery, album. So I hope you enjoyed my photos of my life. And I'll just try and bring up some key aspects in my life that made big changes to me. And then hopefully you'll be able to take something from it. There'll also be an opportunity for you to ask any questions along the way. So here goes. Right, so when Lillian first asked if I'd do this, see if I can move. I said, well, yeah, of course, but you know, what sort of things would you like me to bring up? So these are just some of the ones that she, from our conversation, that she thought would be really interested and of good value to you. So she wants me to just describe how I developed my coaching journey, and how does one progress their journey if they have the intention to move into high performance. What is the pathway to personal development? How do you develop your own self-confidence, particularly in a male-dominated world, which coaching is? What advice would you give to aspiring coaches, and how do we become the role models our sport needs and wants? So hopefully through my story, which it really is a story of my road to high performance, I will cover those things. So first thing I want to start with is just a brief introduction of who I am at the moment and what I've done. So I'm Alison O Riordan. It's a good Irish name, so I'm told. I've been a throws coach for 30 years. However, I've been a para-specific throws coach for 20 years, and that is kind of my niche, and it's what I do. So I've worked for all those people as para-specific throws coach. So it mostly started in Australia, and I'll move on to that. And currently at my journey now, I'm involved with Paralympics Ireland. I've also been an educator all the way through, and I still am an educator. So I've worked at all levels from primary through to university, and I still work in universities. So part of my strengths, I think, is that I'm not just in one area. I actually have to work across a number of areas. And then I've been fortunate to go to a number of major championships, so Paralympic Games, World Championships, European Championships, Commonwealth Games, and also Invictus Games, which is the sort of global games for injured and sick military personnel. So that's happened since I actually returned to the UK. So that's been an amazing experience. So just very quickly, these are all the athletes I've coached onto major championships. So these ones are all Paralympic athletes. So these guys are all Australian. So in the time that I was in Australia, I coached these athletes to major championships, many of them medallists. And then since returning to the UK, I've also coached 3 athletes onto the British Paralympic team. And then moving into the future to Tokyo. My main focus will be on two of Ireland's best para throwers, Niamh McCarthy on the left and Mary Fitzgerald on the right. However, I still work with a number of British Paralympic athletes. And the reason why I do that is because my role with Paralympics Ireland isn't a full-time role. If it was a full-time role, I wouldn't be coaching any British Paralympians. So Niamh on the left, I'm actually coaching, I'm a personal coach for her, whereas Mary on the right has her own Irish-based coach. So I work with Mary and her coach as a collective. Yeah, so that's where I am at the moment. I'm now going to take you on my journey, tell you where I came from or where I come from and how I've got to this point here. So I grew up in London to Irish parents. I was the only girl to 3 boys. A very hard-working Irish parents. Not a lot of money, but enough money to create opportunities for us. So we didn't have lots of fancy stuff, but we had the core things that we needed to be able to get on in life. In terms of work ethics and values, very, very hardworking parents. If we needed anything, they'd go out and get another job. So those kind of values came through the family. 2 older brothers went ahead of me. Nobody in our family had ever been to university. So the 2 above me, my eldest brother, he was the first to go to university, and he's become one of the world's leading architects. He designed Westfield Stratford. I don't know if any of you went to the Olympics and saw the shopping centre there. So he's designed all the Westfield shopping centres in the UK. My other brother is a captain with one of the major airlines. I've done okay. My younger brother wasn't quite as academic, but very talented with his hands, so he became a very talented mechanic actually. So for Irish immigrant parents, I think they've done an amazing job, and I certainly believe that some of my values have come from their own role modelling. So that's where I started, and I did know what I wanted, what I liked from a very young age. So that's probably the first recommendation that I say to you is love sports. So growing up with 3 brothers and a sporty father, we were going to always do sport. So I did a lot of sport. I did every sport going. So and reached significant. I represented my county in a number of sports. This is just netball and football, but volleyball, tennis, swimming, cricket, you name it, I did it. However, my love was athletics. This picture is actually taken from Sally Gunnell's autobiography called Running Tall. This was my local athletics club, and it was made up of local athletes, people that live locally. It's not like that now. People actually, it's a bit like a football club. They bring in really talented athletes, but at that time we were all local. So in case you didn't know, that's me, and that's Sally Gunnell. So she went on to win gold medal in 1976 in the 400-metre hurdles. But what was really significant about this club is we were the most successful junior club. I think you call it juvenile in Ireland. And there was really strong club competition, and we were the best club in the country. We also went on to represent Britain in the European Clubs Champs. And what was really significant for me is that all these athletes here went on to represent their country. So in terms of quite a small local club, there were some really talented athletes, and they were able to achieve their goals and go on to international recognition. And so for a young athlete growing up, in terms of role modelling, I believe that's really, really important, that if you're in a certain position wherever you are in life, you have a role to play as a role model. So this was my main love. I did all other sports, but I loved athletics, and I was just a good thrower. And I think some of it was to do with the fact that I was always on the baseline in cricket, because as an only girl, you're either in goal for football or you're on the baseline in cricket, and I could throw the cricket ball a long way naturally. So I was drawn to more of the throwing events. And once again, at a very young age, I had an idea of who I was or who I wanted to be. So, in case I didn't tell you, I love sport. I always wanted to be the best version of myself. So I trained really, really hard. I wanted to go to the Olympics. I eventually didn't make it, and hopefully that will come out a bit later. I worked really, really, really hard in school, but I wasn't a great student. I was just an average student, despite probably working harder than anyone else. However, when I was young, I was extremely shy. Or so when I reflect back, I think I was very shy. I wouldn't say boo to a goose. However, I probably was introverted. I was really introverted. I did a lot of thinking inside. I'm a scientist now, and scientists are openly introverted. However, moving through, and I think it's important to recognise that people can be shy and introverted, and because they don't talk and make friends and aren't openly happy, people think they're antisocial. And there was lots of people through the years that said, "Oh, she's a bit antisocial. Who does she think she is?" And it wasn't because I was. It's just I lacked confidence, and I didn't realise that there was this thing called girl power, and that definitely needed to be something that I've had to work on over the years. I think you kind of have to know what you want as well. So I wanted to go to the Olympics, and I was very good at sport, but deep down I wanted to be a leader of some sort. And I like this definition that a leader knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. But at that stage, I was like, this is what I want to be. I want to be an Olympic athlete. I want to be a leader. I want to be a role model. But I wasn't sure how that was going to pan out for me at that stage. But I did have a very early thought that that's what I wanted. So another recommendation for you guys is build the blocks. So I love sport, and I was very, very good at sport. And I wanted to work in sport. But I recognised that just being good at sport probably wasn't going to get me a job in sport, because although I was good at sport, I clearly wasn't that good, because I probably wouldn't make it to the Olympics. So I recognised that I needed to go away and learn about sport. So I was an average student, but I did enough that I could go to university. This was a traditional physical education teacher training college in Britain, and they just started like a degree in sports studies. So I was one of the first cohort to go through that. It's a 3-year course, and I came out with a BA Honours, but along the way I recognised that, hold on a minute, there's a whole lot of other students doing the same thing as me. How am I going to be different from them? So at any opportunity, I got as many coaching qualifications along the way. So I think when I left that university, I don't know, I had 10 different coaching qualifications. I'd already achieved level 3 in athletics. So for a very young person, that's quite an achievement. And when I was heading into my 3rd year, I was still going, well, I want a job in sport. But I'm talking late 80s, 90s, there weren't very many jobs in sport in Britain. There was no UK sport funding. There were virtually no jobs in sport. So then I'm thinking, well, I still want a job in sport. What else can I do? So I went and qualified as a PE teacher, because PE is sport, and it means that I can still work in sport. And that's what I did. I went, I trained as a PE teacher and I taught in schools for a while. However, I recognised quite early that even though the reasons why I was involved in sport were because of my PE teachers, I just didn't love it, and it wasn't going to be my future. So whilst I was preparing for what I might do next, I also set up a business called All Sports Coaching. And what it was just me to start with. And I did after school coaching, I did weekend coaching, sports holiday clubs, learn to swim. And then I coached a whole variety of different sports. And I offered myself, I did private stuff, but also offered my services to local sports centres, leisure centres. There was no one else doing this at this time. There are loads of people doing it now. So that's another recommendation for you guys, is create your own opportunities, because you'll be very, very lucky if people come to you. So you've got to go out and create your own opportunities. So I did this alongside teaching, and then it grew and grew and grew, where I didn't actually have to teach anymore, and I was actually employing coaches and what have you. And it was going really, really well. And then I go, well, I can't just stay. I need to keep building. So then I had an idea that I'd really like to be a coach in high performance sport. Because I hadn't made it as an athlete, I thought, you know what, can I get to the Olympics as a coach instead? So then I thought, well, what else might I need to be able to take myself further? So then luckily I lived in a town, it's on the south coast, because I'd moved there to do my teacher training, that there was a university. So I decided to do a Master of Philosophy in biomechanics. I had a sciencey type background from my degree, and I thought it was a good idea, so I did. And because of that, because of doing that master's, it then opened opportunities for other things, which I'll talk about later. So everything's going swimmingly, had a really successful business, had continued my own personal development. However, I wasn't completely satisfied, and I still wanted to try and work towards being a coach, Olympic coach, Paralympic coach, high performance coach. And at that time, like I said, there wasn't many opportunities in the UK. So I thought, do you know what? I need to get myself to Australia to give myself the best opportunity to get involved, to be involved. Australia at the time were the leading sporting nation. They were ahead of everybody else at that time. So I'd gone over on holiday a number of times, and on one occasion when I thought I'd really like to go, I just rocked up at a university and asked to speak to the head of sports science program, and I just said, look, this is who I am. I've got a Master's Philosophy in biomechanics, looking to come to Australia. And he said, we've really struggled to get biomechanists. If you can get here, then you'll have a job. So we moved to Adelaide, and I worked in University of South Australia there. Very difficult moving to a new country and trying to establish yourself. But that's what I did for 3 years. Joined the local athletics club, coached there, and just generally generated more experience for myself. And then still thinking, how am I going to break into high performance sport? Nobody knows me. And then one day, in the Australian, which is like the Australian national paper, this was kind of pre-internet, they had an advertisement saying applications open for high performance scholarship coach positions at the Australian Institute of Sport. Wow, you'd never see an advert like that in Britain. So I thought I'd put my application in, and very pleased to be called across to Canberra for an interview. And I do remember at the time of the interview, they said, we don't know who you are. This is a very small area. We generally don't take people on board that we don't know, but we really liked your CV. We like the things that you've done. So that's why we called you over. So had an interview, had to do a practical coaching session, and then was offered the position. So relocated to Canberra from Adelaide. So that's another move. Oh, did I tell you I love sport? Well, I went to sleep, had the best dream, and woke up in the Australian Institute of Sport. If you love sport, it was just an amazing place. You learned so much. It was a full-time position. I learned from the world's best coaches, not just from athletics, but all sports. So at the time, Australia employed the very best coaches from around the world. So the Chinese were in the gymnastic and diving programs. There were loads of Russians in the athletics program, and I just learned so much. I just immersed myself completely in absolutely everything I could. The best part of all of it was working with athletes. So I was able to coach on a full-time basis with the best athletes in Australia. So that was amazing. Probably one of I also was very proud, should I say, to represent Australia at major games. Felt a bit weird wearing the Australian kit and listening to the Australian national anthem. Didn't know the words to start with, but gave it my best shot. So some really amazing times. One of the most amazing times was being part of the Australian team for the 2006 Commonwealth Games in Melbourne. I was quite early into my career there, so it was amazing, but it was also full of massive highs, but some really terrible lows. So part of the reason why I actually got my position at the AIS originally was in my application, I said, I'm female, obviously, I'm a throws coach, and I don't mind who I coach. I will coach anyone and everyone. And they just happened to be looking for a female throws coach, believe it or not, and someone that would want to and could work with the Paralympic team. So on that occasion, I actually ticked all the right boxes at the right time. So I know that I was very fortunate to be that person. The reason why they were really interested in appointing a female was not so because they were forward thinking, but they recognised that on the Paralympic team there were actually more female athletes than male, and they actually wanted some female presence. So I thought that was very progressive of them. And to be quite honest, the only reason why that was so was my immediate managers were just really good and forward thinking. But as a whole, Australian sport isn't forward thinking, and it's very much a male, white, middle class dominated area, as it is in Britain, probably in Ireland. But I was naive. I thought it would be different, and actually it wasn't. So there were very few female coaches appointed to the Commonwealth Games team, but I was fortunate to be one of them. But as is often the case, there isn't always enough accommodation in the village to accommodate all the staff. So whoever made those decisions, decided that all the females should be located outside of the village. And we had to stay in this pretty grotty B&B down the road from the village, which in itself was fine, except that we quite often had to walk home on our own at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and it wasn't a particularly nice area. And on one night particularly, I was followed home, and that was really unsettling. And I thought at the time it was really unfair, and that I actually felt really unsafe. But you couldn't raise those kind of concerns because it would be cast against you. So I just put up with it. I probably wouldn't put up with it now, but at that time, I put up with it. However, I did get an opportunity to provide some feedback after the event from my sort of senior manager, who I respected very highly, and I did express my concerns. And I said to him, you know, so this doesn't happen in the future, do you think we should make it a formal piece of feedback so it can go into the system and reviewed? And I remember very clearly him saying to me is, I don't think that would be a very good idea, because the likelihood is you wouldn't get appointed on another team. So they were the kind of people that I was dealing with. So although it was an amazing experience being around the athletes and being part of the team, the actual mechanics of it was not very nice. And I did actually experience similar occurrences on a number of occasions, and a lot of that was to do with being female in a largely male environment. So yeah, difficult, but something you had to just deal with. So I had really good time in Australia. I learned a lot. I honed my coaching skills. I'd been employed in a high performance setting for a number of years. And then at the end of 2010, my dad got diagnosed with cancer. So I decided that we needed to move back to the UK so that I could help care for him and spend time with him. So head kicked into gear. What am I going to do back in the UK? So I did actually return for a week prior to the big move. And I set up a few meetings. So I decided that there were no coaching jobs in the UK. There are no coaching jobs in the UK. So I wasn't going to get a similar position. So I decided to create my own opportunity again, and I wanted to be different. So I created my own sports consultancy. I just did the initials of my name. And then I arranged some meetings with some people, and based on my specific Paralympic experience, I had some really fruitful discussions with England Athletics, and they immediately hired me to write coaching resources for them specific to Paralympics. And that was even before I'd moved back. So I actually started that whilst I was still in Australia. And then throughout the time, so I've been back like 8 years now, I work for all these people. So I do some work for British Athletics, but not as a paid coach, as a coach developer, as a RPL assessor, as a coach education. I worked for Channel 4 at the Paralympics 2012. I was the athletics specialist for them, and I worked alongside the commentary team. And because I've got that cross aspect between coaching and academia, I'm able to be employed in university. So I started with Middlesex University, and now I work with the Open University. And the good thing about the Open University, it's all remote, so you can live anywhere else. So, and more recently, I was appointed to be the national throws coach for Paralympics Ireland. And just another little story about potentially going the extra mile is I applied for the position. Like, it's an amazing position. You don't have these positions in the UK. I applied thinking, well, they do know me, but they don't really know me. I live in London. What's the likelihood of them wanting to employ me? So I was successful in getting an interview. And then they said, all right, so we'll have a telephone interview. And I said, no, I'll come across for the interview, because I just thought that if I need to encourage them that I can do the job from London, I need to show them that I can get to Ireland when it's needed. So a flight's really cheap to London, from London to Dublin. Jumped on the morning flight. Got the bus from the airport to the institute, because I thought, well, I need to know where the institute is and I need to know how I get there. So when I rocked up and for the interview, they're going, oh, how did you get here? And I went, oh, I got the bus. And they were laughing, going, oh my God, that was a bit dodgy. You went through some dodgy parts of Dublin on the bus. But I, you know, I don't know if that was the reason, one of the reasons why they appointed me, but I don't think it helped me. And so that's another thing I would recommend you guys do, is create opportunity, be different, go the extra mile, show people that you're different from anyone else, because then you're more likely to stand out. So I do work for a whole variety of people, but underneath it all is my coaching. So I also, as a subsequent, is I have a coaching squad, which is my squad. It's not aligned to any clubs, and it's specific, it's para throw. So I only work with Paralympic athletes. I'm a regular coach, I can coach anyone, but because it's not full-time and it isn't my only job, I only work with para throwers, and I potentially only work with those that have potential to make it to Paralympic Games. And most of the time I talent ID and I do all the work. So coming to a new country, the British knew who I was, but there were no jobs for me because there's other people in those jobs. So I had to show them how good I was, and I had to do it on my own. So what I did was, this was like November 2011, so just before, 6 months before the 2012 Paralympic Games in London. These two athletes were in the system. They had been doing some training. They didn't really have a very good coaching setup. They didn't have very good daily training environment, and they weren't earmarked to make the Paralympic Games. However, I recognise their ability, and I truly thought that I could turn them around in 6 months and get them to the Paralympic Games. So I started to coach them at the end of 2011, and they both made it to the Paralympic Games. So that was great. Both have since moved on. Maxine at the top, she's got quite severe cerebral palsy, and she throws the club, and it just wasn't suitable for her cerebral palsy in the shoulder in the long term, so she was advised not to continue. Derek down below, his event got dropped from the Paralympic programme after 2012, so they're kind of both on their journey up, but had it cut short prematurely, which was a shame for them. So 2012, we're coming on to 2016, so I've coached athletes on to 2004, 2008, 2012, and I'm getting to 2016 and I don't have any athletes that I can get onto the Rio team. So then I made it my mission to try and find somewhere. And what I did was I was running some local seated throws workshops, and a girl turned up at the throws workshop. She was an older girl, and she was there to learn how to be a coach. And I put her in the throwing frame and gave her a go, and she was quite good. And I thought, do you know what? I think I can turn this girl around in 18 months and get her onto the Rio. So convinced her to come and have a go. 18 months later, she's in Rio. She was in Rio. She came 5th. But last year, she won the bronze medal at World Champs, and she'll be in Tokyo next year, aiming for either a silver or a gold. But because she's older, it will probably be her last games. So I'll be on the hunt for more athletes after that. And then when I'm not working in Ireland, I do have my own, like I say, my own squad. They're all Paralympians or potential Paralympians, and they're all working with the same goal, that they want to be the best that they can be. Many of them are funded, which is like your carding. Many of them can, if they're not on carding, they have other avenues to get grants and stuff. And I charge for my coaching. I coach in the day, so I don't coach after work, I coach in the day, and consequently it's a business for me and it's a profession. And these guys recognise it. They get a period of no no fee until it's actually a long period. They get a year to decide whether they want to work with me long term, and then we come to a financial arrangement based on their own particular circumstances. I am an advocate for professionalism of coaching in athletics, because the culture of athletics, both probably in Ireland but definitely in Britain, is that it's voluntary. But I think there is a need for people to have the potential to make it a livelihood if they want. It shouldn't do, but it does change how you go about things if you're being paid for your coaching. So you stay on top of your CPD, it becomes your job. So in many cases, it can raise the professionalism. And I know that England and British athletics are looking towards trying to professionalise coaching more at all levels, not just at the top end in clubs. Our clubs in Britain have a lot of money, so they just don't choose to spend it on their coaches. So coaching in the UK is going through a little bit of a change potentially. Yeah, so that's the coaching side. So since I've also returned, I would also recommend you all to search and take up every opportunity. So since I've been back in the UK, I've participated in as many coach development opportunities. Many of them are female based, which is great for us females, because there is actually quite a lot of funding out there to encourage more females into coaching. British Athletics had one on the back of 2012. UK Coaching had a generic women into high performance, so that was across all sports, and Princess Anne is an ambassador for them. So I don't know what I'm telling her at that point, but I was quite animated. I was very fortunate to get on the IAAF Women in World Athletics, and then when the Irish Athletics Forerunners came on board, like, why wouldn't I put my hand up for it? So I would really encourage you to search and take on every opportunity, because you don't know who you're going to meet, you don't know what you're going to learn. All it takes is one person in any kind of situation to want you, give you another opportunity. So I think I said earlier, you have to go out and find it. It isn't going to come and find you. So yeah, just really embrace as many opportunities, create as many networks as you can, because like I say, it's just one person can make the difference. And I'm here tonight because I'm on Forerunners. So you never know, All right, now I'm very conscious that you can't be what you can't see, and this is a bit of a catchphrase at the moment. I don't believe that I really had anyone that I saw at the time when I wanted to be where I wanted to be, but it's going to be a whole lot easier. Females, ethnic minorities, anyone. If you can see someone that looks like you, you're going to think, do you know what? I think I can do it. Whereas if you've never seen anyone like you, then you kind of go, well, am I really going to be able to do this? So I'm conscious of this, and I believe I have a role to play in being those people, hence putting myself out there. I really, like I said, it wasn't something when Lillian asked me to do this that I jumped up and said, yeah, of course. I always put my hand up for developing coaches. I generally don't put my hand up for talking about myself, so this is a first. So another recommendation, challenge yourself and be brave. So once again, I decided that I needed to keep building my block, so I took on a PhD. So I've got 6 weeks till I hand in my PhD. So another reason why I'm saying, like, go out there, create your opportunities, take on as many as you can, is I started doing some lecturing for Middlesex University, and then they gave me a scholarship to do a PhD. Because if I hadn't started working for them, I probably wouldn't have had that opportunity. I'm a coach. I like to think I talk in, I'm a practitioner. I talk in simple language. I think I talk in simple language. However, I'm considered an academic. So I've been putting myself out at academic conferences, and I'm not comfortable doing that either, because I do have to up my academic language sometimes as well. So just be brave, challenge yourself, do the things that you're not comfortable doing, because that's going to allow you to grow and learn and develop further. Bearing in mind, I'm the unconfident, shy, introverted child. I am still that person, but because I'm putting myself out there, I've forced myself to develop in areas that I never thought I would do. Similarly, like today is a challenge for me. I don't feel comfortable talking about myself, but I felt it was important to, you know, tell my story. If you guys can get one little snippet of help from it, then, you know, I've done okay by it. So over the years, I've become more vocal, and I've recently become a member of the Female Coaching Network. If you guys don't know that, then I'd recommend you look out for it. It's just an organisation run by one girl at the moment, but she's doing an amazing job. She wants to make change in definitely in athletics, but in other sports as well, where female coaches get opportunity, basically. And she interviewed me, and then next minute I know it's up on social media. So I would never have said this sort of thing, but I think it's important that people start speaking out. So I don't expect any favours as a female coach, but I expect to be treated the same as any other coach, and I don't expect to be I expect to be judged on my coaching ability and not my gender. So I'll just put that out there. In terms of creating opportunity, just another connection with Middlesex University. I create work placements for their master's students. So they're master's students in sports therapy, and they come and do their work placement with my squad. And it's, you know, it's a win-win. They get a chance to work with Paralympic athletes and learn about different functions. And some of my athletes that don't have paid therapy get therapy. So that's another opportunity. If you guys have that kind of, if you have a university or a college near you that work with sports students, you know, there's always the opportunity. They're always looking for places for their students to go and learn. So once again, it's like creating opportunity. There was a coach that was attending tonight, but I'm not sure if she's here. I don't really want to embarrass her. But this lady on the left here, I am going to embarrass her. She knows me quite well now. Helen, I did go to, she's from Belfast, and I went to, I did a workshop in Belfast. It was a British athletics para throws workshop in Belfast, and I met Helen and a few of the other coaches there. And then she kept in contact, and then when I was doing my PhD research, she contacted me and said, look, I just want to learn as much as I can. I'm really interested in seated throws. Would there be any chance if I came across and helped you with your seated throws research? I said, yeah, of course. So she, you know, jumped on a plane and came over, and she worked with world-class athletes in a PhD biomechanical research. I made her work hard. She's got a sports therapy background, so she was putting all the reflective markers on the athletes. So, and then she stayed in contact. And when I was coming into Dublin pre-lockdown to work with the Irish athletes, she contacted me and said, is there any chance I could come and shadow you on the days that you're in Dublin? Yeah, arranged it all. So every time I'm in Dublin, she comes and spends the day with me, just shadowing. So, but she wouldn't have had those opportunities if she hadn't asked, because I can't read minds. So that's another thing. Be brave to search out, seek and ask for help from people that are out there, because there are a lot of people that will help, but they don't know that you want them to help because you don't ask them. So similarly, yeah, if you want something, go and get it. If you want to talk to as many people as you can, throw ideas at people, you know, I'm thinking of this, what do you think of this? You know, throw them at me, I don't mind. Now that you guys know me, I'm happy to help you as much as you need to. I won't always have the answers for you, but I can at least say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, or have you thought of this, or how about that person, or whatever. So I'm obviously still on my journey, and so some of the things that I'm still working on, and these are more like my personal goals. So I'm kind of, in my coaching journey, I'm kind of at the stage where from a knowledge point of view, from a technical point of view, there's still more to learn, but I've got a pretty high level of technical knowledge. However, I still think I really need to develop me as a person. And if I can keep developing myself, my athletes are going to benefit, and everyone else that I work from is going to benefit. And I'm a real believer that if you think you've got no more to learn, then you probably should give up. So still things that I'm working on, and many of them relate back to being that shy, confident little girl is. We are what we repeatedly do, excellent all the time, so that it's not an act, it becomes a habit. So I will always look for opportunities. I will always look to try and do my very best for both myself and my athletes and everyone else that's behind me. So that's just one thing. And then things I try to give up and still trying to give up. So I still doubt myself. You have terrible conversations, people say things to you, they judge you. So I still doubt myself. So I am trying to give that up and just believe in myself and be the best that I can be. And if my best isn't good enough for someone else, then that's a whole different story. I did used to be quite a negative thinker, but I'm not now. If someone says to me, you can't do something, well, that's like a red rag to a bull. I will always try and find a way. So I've given up negative thinking. Fear of failure. I don't know if any of these are like going, yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. Yep, that's me. So the reason why I want to put these up to you is that quite often when you're listening to people on these podcasts, you go, oh God, wish I was as confident as them, or I wish wish. And actually, we're all the same, and especially, or more so females in a male-dominated area, we do have these nagging people talking to us negatively. You're not good enough, what have you. So there's some of the things I'm still working on, and without a doubt, I'll probably always be working on them. So hopefully they're helpful to you. So just having a little think. I won't ask you to come on the mic unless you particularly want to. What are your future plans, or what are you working on at the moment that you want to, so that they can help you in the future? If you haven't thought about it, it might be a good time to start. Like actually doing this for Lillian has made me reflect and really think. So that in itself is a really good exercise. If you think, like I say, you're welcome to come on the mic, but if you think you want to contact me later and maybe talk through a few things, I'm absolutely fine with that. Whatever's best for you as people, because everybody's different. So just to go over the things I said, I think it's important that you know what you like, you know who you are, you know what you want, but all the way along you've got to keep building the blocks. And I can confidently say that part of my success is that I had lots of strings to my bows, and that I had to dip into different strings at different times. depending on the work situation and the environment. Create your own opportunities, because it's very unlikely that they're going to come to you. Keep building, don't ever stop building your own blocks, building your own profile, building your own brand. Be different, because if you're just one of a lot, how are you going to stand out from anyone else? Show people how good you are. So, like I said, when I came back to the UK, I had to show people how good a coach I was, because I wasn't going to be given anything. So that's why I identified athletes that I thought had potential, and then were able to work with them and get them onto teams. And then be brave. The best learning comes from doing the things that are difficult. The things that are easy, you don't really learn from. So be brave, challenge yourself, put yourself out there. Yeah, really effectively address your weaknesses. Just like this picture, you're the driver of your own life. Don't let anyone steal your seat. So, and you can be, I'm not naturally confident, but I probably come across quite confident. And some of it is me, because I've gained in confidence over the years, but some of it, I wouldn't say it's an act, but it's not my natural way. Yeah, so I really don't have anything else to say to you guys, except that it's been a pleasure to speak to you. Here are my contact details. Please stay in touch. I tweet a little bit, not much, mostly coaching related. But yeah, I'm happy to help you guys however much you want. And then I'll let you know when I'm back in Dublin, when they allow COVID-ridden British people back in Ireland without quarantine. Then I'll be on the first plane over.
Alison, thank you for your very informative workshop, webinar, whatever you want to call it. I personally took a lot from it myself. Just even, like you said, some of the things don't come natural to you, and I think being a leader so much stems from being authentic and to being real and honest with people, and obviously you've had to combat that in different ways, and I think that just makes you that little bit more relatable to people. And honestly, honesty is the best policy, and that you are sharing so much with people will actually really bring people on. So I do appreciate that. We did have one or two questions that came in. We have one comment even from one of our fellow Forerunners, just saying thank you so much for your time and your life path story. It's really given me a lift and an inspiration for my own life, personally and professionally. And I think one of the most important things that I have found from Forerunners is whatever you take from it, whether it be for sport or for your professional life, for your home life, coping skills, management skills, organizational skills, etc., wherever it helps you, we're going to support that. And even just like learning from other people's stories, their journeys, and taking something from everyone and harnessing from those experiences will definitely benefit a lot of the women going forward. And I think that what you talk about, being brave, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations that you don't, and honestly just going after what you said you really want, a lot of it stems down from yourself at the end of the day. And I think reminding people of that unless we're willing to work for it ourselves, we're not really going to get too far without it. So that internal drive is huge. We actually did have one question from a fellow colleague of mine, Bashir Hussain, who's the development officer in Athlone. A lot of what his work is around coach education, but also talent development. He saw what you were saying about Essex ladies and the talented athletes that was there at the time. He wanted to know, was it evident with some of those juniors or juveniles that were on the team that went on to represent their national team, what set them apart? And is this something, you said you speak about talent ID yourself, what would you be looking for? Can you see some of those qualities in those athletes that you grew up with yourself?
Good question. Obviously I was young at Essex ladies, so I didn't know who was going to be talented, but I must just say that when we were juniors, I used to beat Sally Gunnell in the heptathlon. No, it used to be called the pentathlon.
That should have been your first at the top when you were introducing that you beat
No,
Sally.
no.
I've got that tattooed across my forehead if I had that.
But then she just took off, and I do believe, so we were both quite talented athletes. She was obviously more talented, but she did come from a very wealthy family. And I don't know if that had a difference. Like, I didn't. We were okay. We had food and we had opportunity, but she was from a very wealthy family, so she was able to move into different circles. So she was able to get a national coach from Norway really early and go away, and she didn't really have to think about, this is what I'm reflecting on, a career. Whereas although I was trying to be a really good athlete, I knew I needed to work hard to actually earn a living as well. So that was just one thing. In terms of how I do my own talent ID, obviously I am particularly working in para, so there's some impairment specific considerations there. But for instance, I mentioned Nessa, who turned up to the workshop. Just so that you know, she was 38 at the time, had never done any sport whatsoever. And I looked at her and I went, do you know what? She's really tall. She looks naturally quite athletic. She's naturally strong. I think I can, she's never thrown a shot put in her life. I think I can teach her how to throw a shot a long way in 18 months. And she'd never done athletics. She didn't know sport. But if you can give me the athletic person, I can generally do quite a lot with the athletes. I should also mention that Kelsey Lee Barber, she won the women's javelin world gold medal. Sorry?
Sorry, a cameraman here trying to tell me he's finished.
Yeah, Kelsey Lee Barber won the women's javelin gold medal at World Champs last year. I coached her in Australia as a 17, 18-year-old up to she was 21, and she didn't represent Australia at juniors or youth level. She missed all key markers. But she was very athletic. She was a very good sports person, but she had the best attitude, and she rocked up to training no end. She found a way, and 10 years later, no, actually 7 years later, she's the world champion. So people come in all shapes and sizes and all guises, but you get this feeling.
Yeah, it's kind of about, I suppose, developing and training your coaching eye to kind of spot that early recognition as well, and seeing that there could be pathways for these people to develop, to get, whether it be performance or potential, but giving them some access to opportunity to kind of further develop. Yeah, 100%.
And it's those that take the opportunity and do something with it that are going to be more successful. So that's what I was saying to you guys. You've got to search out the opportunities, you've got to create them, but when they come, you've got to take them. So yeah, I'm on every development program you can ever imagine. And if I'm not naturally invited, I find a way onto it. Like, who's running this? How am I going to do it? So yeah.
If you don't ask, you don't get. And we actually, Alison, have another question here from Olivia. Olivia just said, listening to you talk about Sally Gunnell and coming from a wealthy family, if pushing for coaching to become professionalised, could that limit the pool of athletes that you are getting, if only those who can afford to take part in athletics? Is there a chance that naturally talented athletes don't get a chance?
Yeah, potentially. And obviously there are in the UK ways of going around that. So like I said to you, I said earlier, I do coach for my, I do charge for my coaching, but it isn't one price fits all. It's what it depended on each individual athlete and what's possible. I can't make a living from coaching, which is why I do other things. But you know, that could be a potential. But I also think that athletics coaches need to recognise their own value. And you know, if a child needs to learn to swim, or they want to learn to play tennis, or they're paying for it all the time. So there are very few sports where it doesn't cost you to take part. So I'm a believer that, you know, why should athletics be free and every other sport isn't? What does that do to athletics coaches? You know, how valuable are athletics coaches if everyone else charges for their expertise and athletics coaches don't? I don't know what's right and I don't know what's wrong, but
I know it raises it does kind of, I suppose, even raise the debate between equality and equity, etc. But like, relatively, athletics in Ireland is a free sport and it's very, very accessible to all. So, but maybe I do personally feel like introducing professionalism in athletics is that should be considered, especially in the sense that, well, the GA are willing to pay our coaches, you know, forkloads of money for their knowledge and their expertise, and then we're kind of undermining them within our own sport, and it's kind of a catch-22. There might need to be a few steps that need to be put in place beforehand, maybe even just coaching incentives, etc. Whether it's just like paying for their expenses to get down to the track for coaching sessions, etc. Rather than actually paying a yearly fee or something. But it is definitely something that I suppose needs to be considered going and taken into account going forward. Like I said, that's something that you're in a position to do so, and it might be might inspire or encourage a few more, because I do know that there are a handful of people in Ireland, you know, and even throws coaches in Ireland that expect to be paid for what they're doing. And look, if they've the knowledge and the expertise to back it up, all for it. Before we wrap it up, guys, does anybody have any other questions or anything else they'd like to share or contribute? I'm conscious that we only have a few daylight hours of lovely sun in Ireland, and that many of you might be planning your barbecues and that you might need to hit the road. But if anyone has any questions, even if you want to message myself or message Alison after, we'd be delighted to answer them. And again, you know, as Alison said, it's all about kind of connecting and having a network and a support group around us. And look, we know who Alison is now, so we know who to annoy if we're looking for a few more questions, especially in high performance sports. So thank you, Alison, for all your time and everything, and your presentation. It was brilliant. I took a lot from it myself, and I really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for giving up your time, and I hope everyone enjoyed and took something for it as well. So thank you, Alison.
Yeah, thanks, Lillian, and thanks for encouraging me to be brave and do it. So I've taken a lot from it myself, so thanks again.
Thank you, Alison.
And nice to meet everybody.
Exactly. So hopefully we'll have Alison over soon for our Forerunners program, and if not, we're going to have her again in some shape or form. But thank you again, everyone, like you said, for everyone for tuning in. And thank you, Alison. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.